Section 3: Shaping the Self. From what we know from both these areas of endeavor, it's clear that early life experience may be especially crucial in organizing the way the basic structures of the brain develop. Siegel gives the example of traumatic experiences at the beginning of life. These, quote, may have more profound effects on the deeper structures of the brain, which are responsible for basic regulatory capacities and enable the mind to respond later to stress. Thus, we see that abused children have elevated baseline and reactive stress hormone levels. More common everyday experiences also shape brain structure. The brain's development is an experience-dependent process in which experience activates certain pathways in the brain, strengthening existing connections and creating new ones. Lack of experience can lead to cell death in a process called pruning. This is sometimes called a use it or lose it principle of brain development. End quote. Quote, an infant is born with a genetically programmed excess in neurons, and the postnatal establishment of synaptic connections is determined by both genes and experience. Genes contain the information for the general organization of the brain structure, but experience determines which genes become expressed, how and when. The expression of genes leads to the production of proteins that enable neuronal growth and the formation of new synapses. Experience, the activation of specific neural pathways, therefore directly shapes gene expression and leads to the maintenance, creation, and strengthening of the connections that form the neural substrate of the mind. Early in life, interpersonal relationships are a primary source of the experience that shapes how genes express themselves within the brain. End quote. In addition to the pruning of neurons, Siegel also identifies the mechanisms of epigenetics as playing a role in this mind-brain sculpting process. Quote, a typical environmental parental response to a child's behavioral output may reinforce that behavior. Therefore, the child plays a part in shaping the experiences to which the child's mind must adapt. In this way, behavior itself alters genetic expression, which then creates behavior. In the end, changes in the organization of brain function, emotional regulation, and long-term memory are mediated by alterations in neural structure. These structural changes are due to the activation or deactivation of genes encoding information for protein synthesis. Experience, gene expression, mental activity, behavior, and continued interactions with the environment brackets experience are tightly linked in a transactional set of processes. Such is the recursive nature of development and the way in which nature and nurture, genes and experience are inextricably part of the same process, end quote. What's driving or guiding this sculpting of the infant mind-brain is what Siegel calls the pattern of emotional communication between child and caregiver. This is the primary ingredient which determines the quality of the attachment experience that the child has. According to Siegel, this explains why, quote, emotion is so important for the evolving identity and functioning of a child, as well as in the establishment of adult relationships, end quote. The specific shape into which each individual child's mind-brain is sculpted is, according to Siegel, dependent on different patterns of child-parent attachment. These ultimately result in, quote, differing psychological responses, ways of seeing the world, and interpersonal relationship patterns, end quote. He also identifies the communication of emotion as, quote, the primary means by which these attachment experiences shape the developing mind. Research suggests that emotion serves as a central organizing process within the brain. In this way, an individual's abilities to organize emotions, a product in part of earlier attachment relationships, directly shape the ability of the mind to integrate experience and to adapt to future stressors, end quote.